Better. Okay. I've got 10:03. I'm going to call the Thursday, December 17th, 2020 regular meeting of the Airport Advisory Commission to order. Go ahead and call the roll. Present. Absent.
Here. Here.
All right. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner Burris and a second by Commissioner Call to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion or debate on the agenda? Hearing none, I'll ask for a voice vote. A yes or aye approves the agenda as presented. A no or nay rejects it. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Hearing none, passes 4-0. Next item up is approval of the minutes from Thursday, November 19th. I'll entertain a motion. I have Commissioner Call moving to approve the minutes for the Thursday, November 19th, 2020 meeting as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Burris. Any discussion or debate on the minutes? Hearing none, I'll ask for a voice vote. All those in favor of the minutes or adopting the minutes as presented signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, passes 4-0. Okie dokie. Item number 5. Mr. Stark.
Catch up on the slides there. Good morning, councilors, Mr. Mayor. We'll start with the general report with leases. Not a lot going on there. The only thing that we have for this month going to legal this afternoon is the New Mexico Department of Health lease. I did work with an individual yesterday on an interim lease on T-Hangar 120-6, and we've got one more T-Hangar that's empty. I think they'll probably fill next month. Other than that, there's not a whole lot going on with leases. Operational report, flight operations are coming in at 81% of what they were for November of 2019 as you compare year over year. So that's a slight improvement over what we have had, but it's still not growing very quickly, and I'm sure it's still all COVID related. Sorry, I might get interrupted here a couple of times because we're trying to make connections over the GoTo and everything. Aircraft parking, we're running just about the same as what we have. I think I reported 512 last month for the month of October. As of 12/11, there were 508 airliners stored at the airline. At the airport. There have been a few that have come and gone. Same story as last month. There's some turnover based on airliners going back into service for the Christmas holidays, and there's been a couple of others come in. We've had a couple of Spanish 727 or 747s come in, I think, since the last meeting. Those belong to AirSail. They're Wamos airline, so they're new for us. And then yesterday we had a Airbus 330 come in from. That's right. It was Qatar Airways. I was trying to remember. It was overseas, Mideast is what I was remembering. So AirSail continues to work those relationships with the foreign carriers. So we have several foreign carriers parked out there now. Including Air New Zealand and Qatar that arrived today, Copa. There's one out there from Aeromexico. Trying to think of who else. Iceland Air is out there, and they've got a few others that will probably materialize later, but they're still working those deals. So really, basically, the bottom line for the parking is that it has not changed on the whole very much over the last couple of months, but you do see some turnover within the airplanes that are out there. The parking revenue is still doing really well compared to 2019. November was 349% of 2019. The landing fees also are doing well at 334% of November 2019. And fuel flow also is good. with the related airplanes that are doing the turnover. We're running at 158% of what November 19 was. And with that, we'll start talking about air service. I've got a few slides for this. So this is the Q2 of 2020 report for our performance monitoring that Mead and Hunt does for us every quarter. And I wanted to run through this pretty quick. There's 13 slides, so I'll kind of go pretty quick. If I get too fast and outrun anybody, just stop me with your questions. I can't read that up there. It's a good thing I printed it out. So the three lines you see there on the graph are traffic and capacity trends. The load factor is the red one in the middle for us. Capacity is the black one on the top, and absolute passenger numbers is the blue one on the bottom. But year over year, our capacity decreased by 16%. Onboard passengers were down 26%, while the load factor decreased 8 percentage points. Now remember, this is Q2, so we were fully into the pandemic on this. I'm hoping that as we see the next quarter, we'll see all of these numbers begin to creep up. Overall, O&D markets are listed in this chart. Most of the markets, with the exception of LaGuardia and Jacksonville, experienced a decrease in O&D passengers related mostly to COVID. Overall passenger decrease is 25%.
You want to say what O&D stands for?
O&D is origination and destination. So if they originated here or they were going somewhere else, origin and destination. Thank you. That's why I keep him around.
Exactly.
He helps me with the acronyms. I'll get to one in a little bit that I have to always think about, but I'll remember it this time. Revenue and fare trends. Fares averaged $38 higher than the U.S. average in the latest year-ended quarter, while revenue decreased 23% year over year. The fare gap increased $2 year over year for Q2. So as you look forward, flights and seats year over year, flights and seats are scheduled to decrease over the next 2 months. So that would have been during the summer. We'll see that in the next quarterly. Remain steady in January 2021, and then increase in February 2021 through April 2021. Overall flights and seats are currently scheduled to decrease by 11% over the 6-month period. Seats per capita. We did pretty well there compared to other comparison markets that we typically look at. We're sitting at 1.13 seats per capita. As you can see, we're at the top of the chart. So we're doing well compared to other markets that we look at. And if you look at all of these other cities, every single one of them are a little bit bigger than we are, and so that has some explanation to the per capita numbers. O&D passenger airfare comparisons. Roswell had the 5th lowest average airfare among markets, with Longview, Tyler, and Flagstaff being lower. So we were right in the middle. Year-over-year comparison, Roswell's O&D passengers were down 25.3% on a 15.9% decrease in seats. Roswell had the 2nd highest percentage decrease in seats among the comparable markets, leading the largest decrease in O&D passengers. Most likely that's because they cut Phoenix completely out and cut one of our flights out for Dallas-Fort Worth. The load factor trends going forward. Load factors for the second quarter were down 32% and for DFW, and down 58% for Phoenix, which again, they canceled our Phoenix route, so that explains that one. Overall, the market average load factor was down 33 percentage points. And this is the one that I always have to think about, but RASM, it's revenue per available seat mile. So that's the number the airlines care about the most, because it ties it down to each seat and how they make their money. So Roswell's RASM and load factor were below American's average for DFW. If you look at the average, it was 60%. For us, it was 78% for the average. So we were a bit below. For Phoenix, we're pretty much spot on. Our load factor is 62. The market average is 79, so we're closer to the line, but also a little bit below it. The trends for RASM for Q2 2020, year-over-year RASM decreased 67% for DFW and decreased 93% for Phoenix. Overall market RASM decreased 67% in Q2. And I know I just threw a whole lot of numbers at you, and you guys are probably glazed over, but questions?
Can we get that sent to, emailed to the commissioners?
I thought that would be a good idea. I will do that.
Okay. All right.
And then in the rest of it, in terms of what you probably have already heard in the newspaper and everywhere else, how talks have gone, we've talked about it a few times in city council meetings and commissions and such. But at this point, we have agreed with American to waive their October storage parking fees, which amounted to $58,000 for October. Going forward, we would be considering doing that for every month going forward, but we have to have city council approval to do that, so that will be coming to a committee or council near you one of these days soon. And with that, I will introduce Juanita.
Okie dokie.
Uh-oh. I don't think our slides got up there. Technical, hang on just a second.
Okay. Well, while we're waiting for that, any questions for Mr. Stark at this point? No. Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners, Mayor. I'm here to present a campaign overview of a campaign that we ran mid-September through October based on our current situation with COVID and flight capacity, as well as the negotiations with American Airlines. We felt it was important to have awareness out there for the Air Center, and also to hopefully get some of those business passengers to utilize the flight service. And so while they get that up, I'm gonna kind of just give you an overview, and then hopefully we'll get to show you some data. The objective was to drive bookings to utilize the flight service. That was our #1 priority. With that, that's not the right one. With that, our plan dates was September 14th through October 25th. We did 3 different tactics, which was a cross-device display, a social campaign via Facebook, and then a search engine marketing plan, meaning when somebody is looking for travel or looking for flights, Roswell Air Center will pop up higher in their Google search engine. We were targeting potential visitors that would be coming from Dallas to Roswell as a maybe pass-through, and then also our local Roswell residents leaving our market going to Dallas for a weekend getaway in a COVID-safe way. A couple of the campaigns that we did, one of them was get some R&R in the Big D with only 90 minutes away. And then the second one was stay here and go there. So again, we're trying to drive people to come to our community and stay in our hotels, but most importantly, utilize the flight service from Dallas to Roswell. With that, we had top of line summary. There it is, thank you. I'll show you real quick. This was the creative that was utilized in those 3 tactics on Google, on our search engine optimization, and then on Facebook. And with that, I kind of give you a high-level overview of some of the tactics. So for our search engine optimization, it's really more about awareness and impressions, making sure that Roswell Air Center and Fly Roswell is populating on a mobile device, on a tablet, or a desktop when somebody is looking to make a travel purchase. We had a little over 17,000 impressions just with that one ad, and of those impressions, 861 click-throughs back to our website, which exceeded our benchmark of a national average. The click-through rate was 5% higher than our national average of click-throughs, so I thought we did a really great job in there. Our display ads, we had a click-through rate of 40% higher than the national average, meaning that our content was engaging and people, as they were scrolling through, they actually clicked on the ad. And then last but not least was our Facebook tactic, which had a click-through rate of 47% higher than the average. This was greater interest being showed in the Dallas market that would travel to Roswell. So we had higher engagement in Dallas than we did here in our local market. We also did have a bonus added to the Facebook. There was a mix-up in the Facebook ad copy that the agency corrected, and our vendor then gave us a bonus of impressions. And so we had about 50% additional Facebook exposure because of the error that they had, which was to our benefit. On top line summary for search engine optimization and display, again, this is when they're going to go and Google. We track the conversions, so it's important whenever we market. It's great to have marketing, but if there's no conversion or a return on our investment, then it's really not a benefit to market. On this one, our number of clicks to visit Fly Roswell, that also resulted in a click to American Airlines booking. That's what we were really looking for. And so we weren't exactly able to measure the actual booking, because once you get to American, we can't get into their data. But we were able to look at a 15% ad clicks to our site that then moved on to the American Airlines booking. It's not as comparable to the benchmark, which was 3.95% for an immediate conversion, but overall our actual booking, if we could measure that, it was a really good conversion rate going to AmericanAirlines.com. On display, we had a 20% click to visits moving through the booking progress, and that is significantly greater than a normal benchmark of 3 to 5%. This campaign success was mirrored in Google Analytics, so it's important for us to not only track on the back end through our search engine how it's doing, but also through Google Analytics, because so many people utilize Google in their searches. And so we tracked new users. We were up 2.6 times from 982 users to about 2632 users. Our engaged sessions went up 58% from about 849 to 1339. Our events doubled from 6,319 to 12,642. And then the organic Google traffic, it was the #1 source of new users, and the metric more than quadrupled from 135 to 608, which not only drove direct results, but also created awareness for Roswell Air Center and also Fly Roswell. That is our summary, and I can go more in-depth specific by click-through rates and cost per clicks, but I don't want to overburden you with the data. Overall, the campaign did really well for awareness and for actual comparative click-throughs to American Airlines, far better than we have been. The bookings are still down, obviously, due to our current situation. We will continue to have awareness campaigns to ensure that we continue our flight service to and from Dallas. And I will stand for any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Jennings? Go ahead, Dr. Powell.
Yes, ma'am. What you gave the cost for the social media. What were the costs for the search engine optimization and displays?
The total campaign cost $8,000.
Thank you.
And the funding from this, we are required by state law to utilize 40% of any lodger's tax collections on advertising and marketing. So this specifically is funded out of lodger's tax, as well as the SCASDAP grant. We do get credit, so we get a little bit of recovery on that. And any other questions?
When you were talking about continuing the campaign, are we going to do this like after the first of the year again? What's your plan on that?
Yes, so we currently working with our agency. We want to make sure and we are compliant with COVID safety. So our messaging will be a little bit geared toward to safe flying as people are starting to move around. We want to let them know that coming to the Roswell Air Center, they will have a safe environment. Additionally, we want to support the Air Center with more of an economic development outreach and scope. We have this money that we have to utilize by state law, but we also want to remain compliant due to the current pandemic. So there presents an opportunity to use the marketing dollars in a different tactical way for a different target audience. Rather than visitor travel, we may now want to really hone in on business, maybe acquisition for the Air Center, and really promoting the flight to and from Dallas. Our goal eventually is we would really love to have our Phoenix flight back, and the more awareness for Roswell Air Center and our Dallas flight, the better position we will be in the future. So that's
Okay.
our direction for Q1.
Very cool. Anything else from Ms. Jennings? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Stark. I'm just going to say about the foreign carriers coming in. You know, I was really pumped when I saw that Qatar came, because to me that's a huge deal, that the foreign air carriers who could, well, Qatar Airways could go anywhere in the world if they wanted to park a plane, literally anywhere. And they've come halfway around the globe to come to Roswell. And to me, that's a huge deal. So hats off to you,
Airsail.
Mr. Stark.
Absolutely, and I was hoping Airsail would be here, can talk a little bit deeper about that. But of course, you know, when they've got deals going, they've got some proprietary things they can't talk about. But some of these that are foreign, like the two 747s from Wamos, those belong to Airsail, so they're coming back here because they're lease returns. The one that came in yesterday, I have no idea. But either way, you know, when you look at it, you know, we've become important in part because of our storage area that's available and Airsail's participation in that, and they're a big part of bringing those airplanes here. Some of them are theirs, and some of them are their customers.
Okay.
Let's see. I think I had one or two more things in my list. Things that have been going on lately at the Air Center that people don't see. We've been going through TSA inspections. We've been going through FAA inspections. Inspectors always find things, so it keeps us busy. So we're responding to those things. FAA stuff is due next week. TSA is a little bit longer. But what you'll see come out of TSA is actually going to be mostly positive things. They're working with us to improve security. So we'll see some technical changes, some new security features that are being upgraded that I really can't talk about because they're security, but just wanted to know that there is city money being spent that we had planned before, and there'll be some more coming along that we'll have to make plans for to improve the security at our airport. But we work as partners with TSA to make that safe for the flying public. And then the Job Corps property that GSA has put out for surplus, we've been, as you guys know, involved in that process for quite a while, and we're continuing conversations with them. Hopefully we'll come to some resolution soon, but if we are not able to make a deal with GSA, then it will go to auction, and we will probably look at participating in that because we're still interested in that property. But at this point, there's not a whole lot of movement in that, but did want to give you an update that it is still being talked about, still in the works. And if, like I said, if it doesn't happen between us, then it'll go to auction.
For Dr. Powell's purposes, why don't you explain which piece of property
Okay.
we're talking about?
So directly across from the terminal, where the ball fields are over to the east-northeast, there's 12 acres there that belongs to the federal government that Job Corps has had since it was part of Walker Air Force Base, and they haven't used it in years and years and years. So what we look at it for is potential for further economic development. We look at it as potential for a hotel or for commercial business buildings, for other industrial warehouses, really any and all of that. But it's prime property, especially being right across from the terminal. And so that's why we've been interested in getting control of it and are right in the middle of that surplusing of that property.
All right, anything else up to this point? Questions? All right, you want to go on to item number 6?
Item number 6, see if I can get my technology to work. So we've been working with Armstrong, as I mentioned last month, to establish some areas, some parking, kind of get numbers as to how many airplanes can go in those areas down in the southeast corner. For Dr. Powell, this is kind of new, but we are probably at about 80% capacity-ish on what we have out there in asphalt. We still think we can put another 80 to 100 airplanes on the asphalt that's left. So it may be a little better than we think, but it really depends a lot on how those aircraft get arranged as they come in. But what we're thinking is doing an exploration of whether it's worth expanding that aircraft storage area into some of the open field that we have out in the southeast area. So as you look at these areas, quite honestly, the numbers are really pretty much how we would prioritize doing those areas. But we kind of picked area number 3 as an example for cost purposes. So area number 3 is 103,705 square feet, for what that's worth. Let me get over to my other little bitty tiny print that I can see in my cost estimates here. And Armstrong has run some cost estimates for us, basically using an engineered base course to do tugways and to do parking pads. The heavier aircraft, of course, would have to have a metal plate, like a 777 would have to have a metal plate under the gear to help support it. But the smaller aircraft, the lighter aircraft, may not have to. And that cost would fall on the MROs. But we would take care of, if we did this, we would take care of the tugways and the gravel parking pads. So when you look at the cost for Area 3, it's estimated at $312,525. If you break that down to the average airplane, that's $7,813 per plane. So then I tried to run that out. Okay, how long is it going to take for the city to make their money back on parking a plane on those pads? So the ROI on that is 521 days of plane parking per pad, so about 1.4 years. So as we look at this, we might still be able to sharpen the pencil. We might still be able to find some cheaper ways to do it. We're still at a pretty high level of planning. The idea is not to pull the trigger on this anytime soon. As you can see, the ROI on it's pretty long. So that was pretty much what I expected. The thought behind it is looking at the ROI for the cost of how much we get in per airplane, and that was using a $15 per airplane average is what I was using, $15 per day. But look at that cost of what it costs to build it, what we get back in, how long it takes for the ROI, and then what else does the air center make? If we park all these airplanes out there, we do get other revenue from, we get revenue from flow fees, we get revenue from landing fees. So it's all about the other things that happen as well. If we can come close to breaking even on this expanded parking, then it might be worth doing. But as you can see, that's going to be quite a challenge. So we're not in a hurry to pull the trigger on it, but we do want to know what the costs are, and we do want to have a plan on the shelf that we can pull off and go, okay, now we really want to get serious about looking at this. So we're still, in my mind, at a fairly high level of looking at it. We should be able to polish it down a little bit more. We're also talking to, let me get my phone because it's in there, but we're talking to at least one other company that does a different process other than the base course, and they are Lithfield Technologies, and they run about $12 to $15 per square yard for their process, but that's not all of the cost. That's their specific proprietary process to harden up the ground. Basically, it's a chemical mixed in about 10 inches deep that hardens up the ground, but there's some more to it that probably we're going to have to, if we're interested in it, have them come out and really do a real presentation for us. So that could happen next month sometime. I also want to make a couple of phone calls at least to Marana and talk to the manager over there, because they've done some of that type of work on their soil, but I haven't had a chance to connect with him yet, and see what they've done and see if it's cheaper than doing a base course type of thing like we're looking at. Questions?
All right. Questions on the expanding storage? Mr. Burris.
Just real quick, you said this is high level, but if you decide to do one of these sections, what's the turn time? If we say, okay, let's go month, 3 months, 6 months, you get a little bit of leeway. You said you had, 50 to 80 spots, or 80 to 100 more spots you can use.
Jeff, can you turn Armstrong on? Tim, can you answer that? Uh-oh.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
We got
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
The technology
All
works.
right, great. Yeah, we're looking, I mean, the design here is pretty simple. I mean, we could have this thing surveyed and everything beforehand and put whatever section we're looking at, we could get that design out on the street probably within a couple of weeks to a month. And then to get a contractor, I guess we're bidding, if bidding this, we got to do a minimum of 10 days and get a contractor in there. I think you could probably have something up and running within 3 to 4 months.
All right.
If you guys do have some city contractors that have on-calls, and I believe if that's the case, we could give them a set of plans and they could probably be out there and you could probably have this thing done in 2 months if we could use some of your city contracts.
Okay.
And the one thing I want to emphasize too is we have a parking meeting every month. So we're talking about this, so what do you guys see coming? We're trying to stay ahead of this with the MROs to understand if there's any waterfall of airplanes coming, and there's not right now. It's this constant turnover that we're seeing, a little trickle up, a little trickle down, but not really anything big. And so I've tried to make it clear to them, guys, give us as much notice as you can give us. If we're going to need to do this, then we're going to need some notice. And then the other option is we just say we're full, and we've done the best we can and we're full. If the numbers don't work out, we're able to pay for that or anticipate that those airplanes are going to be there long enough to pay for it. So those are the things we kind of have to work out as we go with the MROs, and that's a month-to-month type of thing.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Well, I like the idea of having real numbers because we've been kicking this around a little bit. A little more pricey than I had anticipated, but it's good to have some serious numbers, and now we know. And my 2 cents worth is we never tell anyone we're full. We always say we will be happy. The light is on, as Motel 6 says. We will take in it. We'll figure out a way. Yep. And we'll just do what we can. But I do like having this prepared on the shelf, and unless there's a burning desire, I don't think we need to move forward with any suggested action at this time. So, all right, go on to item number 7.
Hey, sorry to disappoint you guys, but number 7 will be short again this month. I have had some conversations with AirSail, but we don't have any agreement on price for the crunch pad at this time. They are having a corporate meeting today where they're discussing it, so hopefully we'll have something next week.
That was short and sweet.
I know, short and sweet. So, because really we can't move on much further until we have some idea whether we're in their price range or they want to do something else or that kind of thing yet. So that's where we are still.
Okay. Any questions on that one? No. All right. Going on to number 8.
Number 8, Ascent. And now let's hope we can get Brad on the line because this is Brad's baby. I can tell you that as far as what I've done with Ascent, they have the lease and are doing legal review on it, and they have a agreement to access the site for survey work and all of their due diligence. So they should be doing that work pretty quickly as well. Nothing?
Can you hear me, Scott?
Hey,
Oh,
I hear you. Here's
now we
somebody.
hear you.
Is that you,
There we
Brad?
go. Okay, I had to get unmuted. Good morning, everybody. And listen, I want to apologize. I told Scott I came down with something. Don't know what it is. Don't want to know what it is. But definitely did not want to share it with anybody there. So, yeah, Scott, just kind of the down and dirty right now is exactly what you said. We're working on due diligence. Our goal is the balance of this month and the month of January to button up our due diligence and also be working on both the sublease with Ascent as well as the ground lease with the airport. Have that buttoned up. We tentatively have it scheduled. We're hoping for mid to end of February at the latest. We really want to be breaking ground. I'll jump ahead. We really want to be breaking ground early May. In fact, right now I'm looking at the schedule. We're hoping from May 4th. We really want to have Ascent in there. We're predicting April 4th of 2022 for a certificate of occupancy. So we're trying to mash the gas as fast as we can. We got holidays coming at us. We all know what happens there. But it does feel like everybody's, especially on this one, is pushing hard to get a lot done this week. So we have everything else moving forward the following week. But everything is looking good on our side so far. Like I said, that's kind of what we're targeting is balance of this month, the month of January, to button up the due diligence items, provided everything looks good there. Not anticipating any issues with whether it's the environmental or the soils or anything, Scott, from what you and I have been talking about. So again, I think the big boil down is we want to have everything done. We're showing a execute the ground lease with the airport no later than March 8th. That translates into us getting going on designs, again, breaking ground May 4th, and then handing sent the keys with a certificate of occupancy on April 4th of 2022.
Okay. Brad, you want to run through all the agreements that need to be reached that you guys are involved with? I think part of that is keeping track of what needs to be resolved.
Correct. I mean, the basic agreements is the ground lease between us and the airport, or us and the city, however you want to put that, and then the sublease with Ascent. We have to negotiate those both at the same time as those come together. So really, I guess it's those are the major agreements. If we can get into building permits and that type of thing, but the agreements are really those two between us and the airport on the ground lease, and then between us and Ascent on the sublease.
Okay. And then the city, and I will tell you this, that I know the city manager and the county manager are working on an MOU that the last I heard was back over at the county for approval on this project. So we have that one. When you say the sublease with Ascent, that's the agreement between Western and Ascent on where you will be leasing to them the building. Is that a good way to put it?
The improvement, correct. Our entity to Ascent, that lease of the improvements on the property.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Any other questions on this monstrosity? Yeah, just so we know, the $5 million capital outlay issue, just so everyone's aware, February 25th is where the 5% needs to be obligated. That's the DFA term. I don't claim to know the legal definition of obligate, but that's kind of what we're looking at. We're looking at another option. You want to talk briefly about that, or have Mr. Nahar talk about the water line concept?
We have a list, basically a shopping list of options that we have offered to the county to do to get that money started. So basically, if they start doing design work, they're going to just spend some of it, and probably those water lines are the most important to us, I think. But I'll leave that to Louis to talk about specifics on that.
Chairman, Commission, thank you. First, let me give you a definition of obligation. Definition of obligation is that you have an agreement, you have it executed and approved by your governing body, and there's a form that goes with it, and then you send it in to DFA. So there's a little process.
Have to actually have written a check yet.
No, you're just obligating the money.
Okay, so we'd have to have council action in the February council meeting. and that
Depending on
would-
how much the amount, if it's over 60,000, yes, you got to take it to council, but you have to have an agreement already executed by the governing body and your vendor. There's a DFA obligation form that you fill out, you send that in, and then you get concurrence. When you get that back, then you're obligated.
Cool, thanks for that, I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. And so the scenario on the water lines, I have done an estimate, and as city engineer, our recommendation would be to start the water tower with the 14-inch line and just replace the lines going to the east, across the Earl Cummins to the air cell area, working around those buildings and customers that we already have and those lines that we already have, and then working to the southeast. Again, that's just touching our existing lines. Those existing lines are transite, asbestos cement. They were put in the 40s. They would help with the pressures, but we have to replace what we have first, is my recommendation, and we're looking at about $2.5 million. That suffice?
And you want to talk about, that's an 8-inch transite line, if I'm not mistaken.
14-inch. It starts at the 14-inch transite coming off the towers.
But when it gets over to 1166, I think it's 8 inches. isn't it?
Correct.
Okay,
You would slowly reduce from as you go.
yeah, all right. Dr. Powell?
Just one question. Do you know when those funds became available? Because they have the 6-month window, right?
Yeah, it was August 25th when they signed the DFA agreement.
Okay.
So that's where we extrapolate out the 6 months to February 25th. Yeah. And we've got a copy of that somewhere. Anything else?
The process with the county and the city is ongoing.
Yeah,
so-
we actually had a meeting, we being myself and the city manager met with the county manager and deputy county manager, I'm going to say close to a month ago, and we talked about a draft MOU, and that's when the replacement of the transite line going over to 1166, the alert pad or the Mystic, whatever you want to call it, the building number is 1166, right? So the idea of replacing that, because it needs to be done eventually, and this seemed to be an opportune way to get that necessary work. I mean, we've got like 70-some miles of transite, right, Mr. Nahar?
That is correct. I don't think I'll get it done in my career.
Or in my lifetime. But yeah, we're eventually trying to have to replace all of that with PVC. And arguably a larger line, at least some of it, because part of it, you want to talk about this, because I think this is something that the commission needs to be aware of. Talk about the YO Road aspect and the pressure issues.
Back in the 70s and 80s, it was groundwater contamination in the wells along Hobson Road and YO Road on the perimeter of outside the airport. The Corps of Engineers funded the city to run a water line from Main Street east on Hobson and down YO Road to the south, which there's an old mobile home park there. Anyway, the line is C900, so it is better line, but the pressure when you open up the fire hydrant at the dead end, it'll trickle water, it won't give fire protection. There's just enough water to give the customers domestic water to replace the wells that they were using and the system that they were using.
And this is because of the contamination issues for their private wells that was identified back, what, in the 90s and
It was
80s?
identified back in the 90s, and the activities of the base, if I can say that,
Yep.
contaminated some of the groundwater in the wells in the perimeter of the base. Very similar to what you see around most bases around the country.
Yeah. So this, in many ways, in my thinking, for what it's worth, is that this is addressing a multifaceted issue. The lack of pressure, the lack of flow in that region over there. I call it the east side, and the potential for additional domestic customers of water if it's found it's needed. You want?
Well, the main thing would be with the new water towers and the new lines, you would have decreased friction loss along the pipes, so your pressure theoretically should increase. And again, better for the customers and better for their protection.
Okay. Anything else? Councilors, commissioners? No? I'd like to see us continue with it, this on a discussion, the water line project in particular. So we can have you back next month, Mr. Nahar.
I'll put it on my calendar.
Okay. All right. Ascent projects, so now Air Center staffing update.
Okay. Brad, thanks for your attendance. We appreciate all the answers and all the help on everything you're doing. Number 9, Air Center staffing update. I think the last time we talked about it, we were in the process of doing interviews. We did 4 interviews. All were very good. In the process now, checking references, and hopefully should finish the selection process within a week or so for the property manager and contracting position. The deputy director position is open at this time, and I think I've got about 3, maybe 4 applications right now, so not a lot yet. May need to see if we can find some other ways to get the word out that that position's open. So we haven't begun any interviews on that one yet. But hopefully we'll have us a property and contracts coordinator fairly shortly.
Yay.
Yay. Big yay for me.
Yeah. Because you're going to have to stop sleeping otherwise.
Already have.
Oh, okay. Navy. We went from yippee to, oh.
Yes, we did. So the update on the Navy is, as of this morning, I talked to Lieutenant Commander Jeff Laird. He had called last week to give me a preliminary notice that it didn't look like they were coming. He was about 90% sure. And I circled back with him this morning and said, so anything new? And he says, nope, it's done. They're not coming this year. The reason that they're not coming is has nothing to do with Roswell. It has nothing to do with their budget. It has to do with the demand for pilots. What happened is because of COVID, the airplane manufacturers got behind. They're not able to deliver on the airplanes that the Navy has ordered, so they don't have need for pilots. So basically the numbers that they need to produce have dropped significantly, and they're able to train all those pilots at Corpus without coming out here, so they don't need to spend money on a debt. So we're in the pipeline for next year, as we always are, and he apologized profusely and said, sorry we couldn't come through for you guys, and I said, no, we're sorry we couldn't come through for you, but there's always next year. We know this stuff happens. So unfortunately, they won't be here this year.
This was a significant project because we got some estimates on what they would be spending here, and it was close between lodging and per diem and rental vehicles, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 2.8 million, if I remember right.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
So
yeah, it was very significant.
It hurts.
Especially at a time where things are depressed anyway. It would have been a good shot in the arm.
Yeah, we could have used that for lodger's tax.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other questions on the Navy? Okay. Next one is item 11.
For Jen Air. So I've got Mr. Isaac Sheets here, and he's going to catch you guys up. But basically what is on the horizon in the short term for Jen Air is continuing their expansion of their hangar and building a teardown pad. With that, I'll turn it over to Isaac.
Go ahead and state your name for the record, if you would, sir.
Good morning. My name is Frederick Sheets, or Isaac Sheets. I'm the owner of General Airframe Support. Just wanted to give you guys an update. Of course, everything is delayed. We should have had our engineering drawings for the hangar, for the building itself, and for the door in October. We just received those last week. So now they're going into manufacturing, and from what I understand, it's 12 to 14 weeks out before delivery on the door and the building. We have went ahead and purchased the rebar, about $125,000 in rebar. We're still waiting on an estimated delivery date on that, so we haven't even really broke ground on our crush pad yet. But as soon as we get some dates, I'll give you some further updates, but everything seems to be delayed. I'm shooting for the end of March or April to have all these, the building, the hangar expansion done. I'm hoping to have the crush pad done by the end of January. But it's really out of my plan or my hands. I'm waiting on the manufacturers right now.
Okay. And the hangar's going to be able to accommodate a 3.7?
Yeah, it's for the narrow body. It'll hold all 3.7 models and Airbus 319, 320s, 321s.
Okay.
So we'll be able to handle all the narrow bodies. And that's what we were planning our niche to be. We'll still be able to do return to service on the wide bodies. We just won't be able to do heavy maintenance or anything like that on those. We will be able and plan on doing heavy maintenance on the narrow bodies, though.
Okay, very cool. And this is for Dr. Powell's perspective. It's actually near his little
His
campus
piece-
too. This one. What's the number on that building? Okay. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, it was our anticipation to have it done by this month, by December, by the end of the month. But like I said, we were supposed to get those engineering drawings back in October. And once those are done, then it goes to manufacturing, which is 10 to 14 weeks. So we just received those last week. So,
Okay.
we'll keep you guys updated, and we're still pushing forward. The hangar's going to be, end of March. Best case scenario, April. Worst case. Crush pad, though, as soon as the rebar gets here, we'll break ground, and I'm really hoping to have it done by January.
Okay,
Okay?
cool. Other questions? Awesome. Thank you for coming.
Hey,
We
no
appreciate
problem.
it.
Thanks for having me.
All right. All right. Item number 12.
So for item number 12, kind of update where we are with that and take a look if we want to look at making any motions or actions with it, which is why I put it under new business and regular items. So two things that have been going on kind of in the last month. EDA approached us, of course, and said that we had applied for a $3 million grant, and they were willing to talk about a $2 million grant. So we entered those conversations with them. They asked for some more information and some modifications of our application. All of that got in on Monday, so it's back in their court again. I expect that we'll probably get some more questions from their engineer, which we haven't seen yet, but we may get some more questions on that. We don't necessarily have a turnaround time of when they might offer us the grant yet. So basically their wording was, we're not offering you a grant, but it looks very good. So that's Scott's paraphrasing of what they said. But at some point that we would actually get a grant offer once they've gone through all of the material that they have. And the other thing that we've been working on with the project, or I've been working on with the project, is a discussion with FAA about FAA AIP money to supplement this project. And we can't supplement the hangar project directly, but MAP money works, the Military Airport Program money works very well in our Phase 2 ramp rehabilitation that they are looking at giving us this next summer, in summer of 2021, be August, September. That grant would work out to around $3.1, $3.2 million, and it would cover areas to the east of the terminal and some right out in front of the terminal to basically continue to repair the old ramp. If you remember right, we got one this year to do the very same thing, the Phase 1 grant for about $3.1 million. This would be Phase 2, and we've included the area next to Hangar 84 where the crunch pad is to rehabilitate that as part of Phase 2. So the challenge for us is that particular piece, even though it's smaller than most of the rest of the areas in the proposed work, is the most expensive. That costs $2 to $3 million to completely repair all of that, to demo the the slab that's there and put everything back in the way of ramp. So we'll be looking at different ways to do that. We'll be looking at the possibility of not doing all of it, just doing enough to get the approach into that hangar with the new doghouse done. So basically, this project would be a completely separate project from the Hangar 84 project, but it's right next to it and associated with it because it's the approach into the hangar. So the FAA seems to be very positive about doing that. I think the justification that we wrote for them will be sufficient to make that change in the planning that we had done, because this was not included in the original phase 2, but so far the discussions have been positive. So hope to have some word back on that next month, maybe February at the latest. It has to run through headquarters and all of the box checking that FAA has to do as they go through seeing what they're going to do.
Bruce?
Just a quick question, Scott. Is the state doing training out there still?
They are.
They are? All right, just a thought. Maybe we can talk to them and they could help us out a little bit.
Sure, absolutely. They, when the ways we're able to use them a lot of times are hauling, that type of thing.
Right.
It's mostly the trucks. So if we get this project going and there's an opportunity to do that, then we may be able to do that. We do it as often as we can.
Yeah, we might want to talk to Bunny because they do have bulldozer training. So last go around, they had 6 or 8, I think,
Yeah.
students out there. So maybe they could help tear up some stuff. Just
Absolutely.
a thought.
Worth talking about. Thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments? Candidly, this is a little disappointing, the 2 million versus the 3. Originally, when we started, we were looking at 5. So the challenge has been, and I know Mr. Nebb and Mr. Fuentes have worked very hard to come up with the additional revenue or funds to finance this entire project, which is estimate around 6.5 million, I believe.
Yeah, a little bit over 6. I think it was 6.2.
Now, you've gotten some state grant money. So let's do this. Next month, let's have Mr. Fuentes come here and do us a breakdown on all the funding sources. By then, we should know what the EDA final number is and put that all together and see what we've got. One of the other little frustrations I've had, we haven't talked about today, is the additional terminal parking. That's the MAP grant we got for about $2 million, and my frustration is that we really, in this current environment, don't need more parking at the terminal. But my efforts to get FAA to consider redirecting that money to this project have been unsuccessful. Where are we at with that, if I might ask?
We're about ready to get started on doing that project. I've been holding off. Honestly, I've delayed them a little bit so we could work through the idea of whether or not we could repurpose that money, and the answer I get is a solid no every time. The same as what you got in the letter. So we're ready to pull the trigger and get going on that. And I honestly think that just looking at timing-wise, the time, if we could get that done, to get it done, would be about the same as the Phase 2 MAP project would be. So we're probably better off, not pushing the elephant up the hill and taking the one that's going downhill. It would be similar money.
Yeah. I don't know, it just agrees me. It's the parking lot for nowhere type
Yeah.
project.
The one thing we have done, we have an issue with our old runway lights. So, there was a Phase 2 of the parking lot, and probably later a Phase 3 if it's needed. But we have talked about trading that project for getting our runway lights replaced. We had some issues back in the spring that we wound up chasing shorts for quite a ways. So got us a little more worried about whether our lights are going to last very many more years. So we're working on changing that project, the Phase 2 of the parking lot, to replacing our runway lights on runway 321. So I'm in agreement with you. I mean, today we don't need to go look at the parking lot. I mean, normally you'd have 200 cars parked in places that aren't parking places this time of year. And now we're maybe a third full, maybe.
Yeah.
Fully expect to see all of that come back within the next year or two. So looking at the realistic side of what we're doing with the parking lot, while there's not a lot of activity, is not a bad time to build a parking lot because you don't have as many people in the way. Granted, you won't get the use probably for the first year that we would hope for, but I think by the second year we'll start seeing some use on that because it will be covered parking, and I do still get questions as to whether we have covered parking.
Okay. I'd forgotten about the covered aspect.
That'll be the big advantage that's different from the rest of what we have, is that it's covered and secured.
Okay. Other questions on this? Let's talk about Hangar 84 next month and the parking project as well.
Okay.
And we're now down to item 13. I've got crunch pad, the water line to the east side, Gen Air, Hangar 84, parking. Anything else, councilors, commissioners? Rather? Master plan.
That's on the next month. Justin Peach should be here to do basically a master plan 101. We are about 2 years out from actually doing the hard work on that. So we're a little bit early, but my thought on that is this is something you guys need to have some education on, and because it's different from other master plans. An airport master plan is very different from, say, a city master plan or a parks master plan, that type of thing. So without getting into the weeds, Justin will be here to do a presentation on that and answer questions, and then we'll kind of go from there on the pace that we want to do as we include this group in the master plan process. But really, it's one of those type of situations where there's not a lot of work to be done a year or 2 years out. It kind of gets compressed near the end. So I'll let Justin talk about that time frame because he's much more familiar with it than I am. But he seems to think that we're probably about a year early on doing actual work.
Okay, because the last one was 2012, and commissioners, I will share with you and Mr. Stark, correct me if I get any of this wrong, the previous one in 2012 basically had nothing about MRO. It had a very passing comment about it, aircraft storage and aircraft painting. Was big on reusable launch vehicles for space operations, none of which has come to pass in the last 10 years. But the MRO thing has just exploded.
Right.
I do think the master plan from 12 was very spot on when it came to identifying the upgrades to the runways and the taxiways and the ramp. And I think you guys, one of the things I would like to see is, can we walk through what was planned in the 2012 master plan and see what was done, what was accomplished, and then maybe the things that weren't applicable. So start with maybe a briefing. This is my thoughts on what happened in 2000, or what was in the 2012 document, an overview on that, so we can see what was done right and what needs to be readdressed. But
Yeah,
I know what he's saying about it being a year early, but I don't know, I just have a little concern that things are moving quickly out there.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, and we can certainly talk about that. That Justin and I have had that conversation, and I said, maybe we don't want to work on this every meeting for the next 12 months, to get there. Maybe we do something quarterly, or we do something, 2 times a year. We can kind of talk about that next month and see what cycle is really appropriate to do it. I absolutely want this group's input, and talking to Armstrong, they feel the same way. They want to have this group's input into it. But we don't want to do it a year ahead and have it sit there, and then things change in that year that we really weren't, we didn't have our finger on the pulse for the year that we did it. So that's why it's a little bit early. But I think we could pace ourselves in a way that would work, that by the time Armstrong actually gets into the weeds on it and starts asking more questions, that we will have kind of given them some good direction, before that. And I think that's the goal in doing this. as well as just the education that we'll have next month. But that, exactly what you said, Mr. Mayor, is what we talked about getting educated on what we did in 12 and then how that's changed and, you know, where we think we want to go in the next year or two.
I just was thinking too, well, let's talk about air service again. See where we're going. For the benefit of the commissioners, you may or may not have heard, but yesterday both Eastern and Lovelace began vaccinations for their medical staff. Now, a couple tidbits. This vaccination, we had a conference call yesterday and meeting on it. This one, the Pfizer one, calls for a second injection 3 weeks later. It's between 19 and 23 days. It's exactly the same. All you're doing is giving kind of a booster. What we were told is that the one shot has about a 52% effectiveness. With the second, the vaccine gets to 95%, and it reaches that point 10 days after the second. So where am I going with all this? So 3 weeks from yesterday is January 6th. 10 days after that is January 16th. I believe we will start to see the beginnings of changes in behavior regarding travel. But I could be wrong. I don't have the gift of prophecy. Just like, as Councilor Stubbs knows, I don't have a vote in the council meetings. So, air service. Anything else you want to add? Anybody? Well, obviously, if something pops in your head, let Mr. Stark know, and we will add it. My attitude is that any one of you brings up any topic that you think is worth discussion, it's worth discussion. Every one of you. So we will do that. Public participation. Anybody? Councilor Stubbs, you want to share any wisdom with us? I disagree with that. All right. Seeing as there's nothing else pending before us, it's 11:10, and I will call us adjourned.
And Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Oh. So Warren just